Sandy, did Tammy, did she go over any of
She
the
did all, she
elections?
did elections,
Okay.
yeah. Unless there's anything else you need to.
Well, I told her she could go ahead, and then if y'all had questions for me, that we might could discuss them once I got here, but if you didn't, we had both looked at it prior to her coming up here, so. To give you a little background on what you're reading, based on the Georgia law, the probate judge has the authority to appoint one or more associate probate judges if they seem fit to do so, but they have to ask for the permission or approval from the Board of Commissioners to do that because it's a budgetary type issue. So what you're reading is basically, this is something that I had wanted to do after my first year in office when I was away for training, got put on some committees and would be out of the office. I'd have to find somebody to kind of fill in for me when I was gone. Normally that was the probate judge out of Pickens County. He was always good to help if I needed him. COVID hit this year, and it has really, as well as other professions, it's hit our probate family pretty hard. We've lost 2 of our probate judges. We have one today that's on a ventilator, and one that just got off, or actually just got home. He was on a ventilator for the whole month of August, and we feared that he was not going to make it, but the Lord's kept him with us, and he's home, and we're thankful for that. He's my age, as far as I know, healthy, but he just got a bad case of it. So because of that, statewide, there has been a recommendation from our council that we consider doing this now as opposed to waiting. Because in our office, if the probate judge dies, something happens to the probate judge and he dies, without somebody appointed in a role or a position like this, the decision of who the judge is comes down to the Superior Court judge. And the Superior Court judge could appoint whomever they wanted to be the probate judge until there's a special election held. I have no issues with Judge Weaver appointing somebody if something happened to me. My only concern would be what it would do to my staff. If it's somebody they don't know, not familiar with, putting somebody in that role just all of a sudden would probably cause some issues. So I'm asking you as a commission board today to approve the appointment of my Chief Clerk Tracy T to be my associate judge. And this would take effect January 1st of 2021. She serves at my pleasure. Basically, I could remove her from that position at any time. She would only be the associate judge during my term. So if 4 years from now, if I'm beat or somebody else is elected probate judge, her title position as associate judge would not continue unless that judge wanted her to continue in that role. So I wanted to get that out front to start with for y'all to consider that and look at it. There had been some other things that I had proposed that I thought I would talk to y'all about today that I have decided against, and for various reasons we don't necessarily have to get into those. It was going to be a budgetary request as well, but I think that I will not do that until maybe later down this next 4-year term, that I might bring it back to the board.
On that note, the administration salary line on your spreadsheets will change to $81,296. Yes.
What did you say, 81?
$81,296, and that's state mandated.
We're not saying if you appoint an associate judge, that the Superior Court would not appoint a probate, or does it preclude that?
What happens is if there's an associate judge serving, if I pass away or something happens to me, she would then take over as probate judge until there's a special election held. It just keeps the flow going, in my opinion, better so than Judge Weaver having to appoint somebody to take my place. This would just be a natural, Tracy would just step in and be me in my absence if something, or it don't even have to be death. If I, like some of these judges that have caught COVID and they've been home for 3 months, they've been able to have their associate judge pretty much carry on business as usual. I don't suspect that Tracy's going to be doing anything any different than what she's already doing, but there is the chance that, you know, she will be having to fill in for me if something happens, whether it be training, whether it be I get sick again or something. If I'm on vacation, I would at least have somebody in the office that I know that could carry on without me being present if something comes up.
So she's already working with you now on payroll,
Yes.
right? So it's just gonna be an adjustment?
Yes. It's
And
just-
you wouldn't fill that spot, her spot?
This is just going to be an increase in her pay to take the role of associate judge, because I probably, not right off the bat, but I probably will, there will be times that I'll probably have her hold court for me. This year has been unprecedented, y'all can imagine. With our traffic court especially, our volume has been so overwhelming. And it's because we had to cancel court from February to August. We had no traffic court. Our first traffic court was actually held in August. And so we went several months with no traffic court, which you can imagine how backlogged that has became. However, November, the way we've got it scheduled right now, by the end of traffic court date in November, we should be completely caught up. So the last 3 months have really tried to get, because I didn't want to go into 2021 still working on 2020's stuff. So there may be times that she would hold traffic court to keep us from having to miss a month if I was out of town or something was going on that I could not hold traffic court. So it just gives me the ability to shift some responsibility. It gives me peace of mind knowing if I get hit head on going home or something happens to me that my office is taken care of without somebody having to be appointed that's not from my office. Tracy's been there 6 years. She was there 3 years before I took office. She's very familiar with the ins and outs of the probate office. She is by far the most qualified in the office for this position. So that's basically what I'm basically asking for the additional funds to make her the associate judge. That's the only reason that I have to ask for y'all's approval is because of the budget. Now, if I was not adding any kind of compensation, I don't know that I'd have to have y'all's approval, but because I am, I do have to have y'all's approval. The number that Sandy just gave you for the administration, that's the area that I was talking about, that I had another thing I wanted to talk to y'all about, but I've decided I'm just going to wait on that. So that's why that number's different. I will say, because y'all have already talked about elections, I will say that this conversation we have had in the past, as you all three know, on top of every other duty that the probate office has, we also have the responsibility of the elections in this county. We are one of 35 counties in the state of Georgia that the probate judge still does elections. I say 35 because that's the last number I remember them telling me. I do know that there's a couple of counties that come January, they're going to switch over to an election board, which would remove it from the probate judge's office. At a previous budget meeting, I had brought up the conversation and asked the county to consider establishing an elections board because I felt like that's the trend we're headed in Georgia, and I also felt like that it would be better for the probate office to have that responsibility shifted somewhere else so we could focus on the other duties that we have. At that time, the county's desire was not to do that. All I can do is ask at y'all's decision. So there was discussion that possibly we leave it where it's at in the probate judge's office, but look at compensation for the election superintendent's responsibilities. Currently, in the state of Georgia, there's a statutory amount that's paid to the probate judge that serves as the election superintendent. Come January the 1st, it'll be $4,680 and some change. That's statutory. That has to be added to his pay or her pay as the election superintendent. I don't have to tell y'all $4,600 a year to be the election superintendent is nothing. And I knew that when I took office. I knew it was actually less when I took office than it is now, so they've at least increased it a little bit. So there was conversation whether, if we don't do a board, would the county consider some additional supplement on top of the $4,680 that the state mandates to get paid. I would ask the county, or you three, the board, to consider that. I don't have an amount that I want to throw out at you because, to be quite honest, there's not an amount that I could think of that would be worth, because there is a lot that goes into the election, especially this year has been a tremendous overload in my office. We've had open records weekly, requests for open records. We've got new machines, new training, new poll workers. If y'all looked outside, you've seen the early voting line today. I mean, we will have more mail-in absentee ballots than probably we have ever experienced in Gilmer County. So it has been a tremendous undertaking, and I understand the board not wanting to form an election board, and I understand y'all's right not to do that if you choose not to. And I understand the right of y'all not adding additional compensation. I'm just asking the board to consider that, and I'm not asking for a certain amount. I would prefer that y'all discuss that amongst yourself and decide what y'all think would be something that would be fair. That is not really reflected in anything on this budget. It's just something that I wanted to mention and have y'all consider. I will say there has been conversations in the past, not amongst us here in Gilmer County, but statewide, and in our trainings, there's been discussions mentioned about legislature introduced that would take it out of the remaining probate judges and force or mandate that the counties form a board. I don't know of anything that's pending or even close to being introduced to do that. I know it's been discussed. There's also been discussion, if they are not going to do that they introduce legislation that would increase that mandatory supplement that we get as election superintendents. The closest county that I think we now have to Gilmer County that has elections in the probate office is Chattooga, I believe is the county. White County used to have it, but January 1st they will go to a board. So those are just some items I wanted to throw out there in the beginning before we got into the meat of the budget. And since y'all already discussed, unless you got any questions on the election budget, we can bypass it and go right into the probate budget. And if you got any questions on it, I'll try my best to answer them with the help of Ms. Sandy, because we've already talked about this and how we arrived at these numbers. So I'll quit talking now and let y'all talk.
In terms of the auxiliary judge, do y'all know if we all got to COVID at the same time, who takes over and runs the county? Unless, I don't want the COVID, but.
Me? No.
I was just thinking on top of the elections, if that was to rain down on him too. They can do that on Saturdays.
Yeah. When in the beginning of this COVID, I got an email from David. It's either an email or text. And I had no idea that was the case. He said, according to our charter, if our 3 commissioners all get sick at the same time and cannot do their duties, you become acting chairman commission of the county. I said, David Clark, do not ever
This had better be an April
email
Fool.
or text me again, because that would, I can't even believe it's set up that way. But the more I think about it, if you go back and look at the history of the probate judge, which was known as the ordinary, way back in the day, the ordinary did everything. He was commissioner, the judge, I mean, he done, and I think that's why the probate court itself, the office, has got so many duties, because we had all of them in the beginning, and then they've been kind of, sorted out. But that was one of them, evidently, was the commissioner part of the county. So it kind of makes sense that it would fall back. I wouldn't be opposed to change that charter to where it would go to somebody else, but
You would essentially be a sole commissioner.
I guess, yeah, I mean, so that combined with elections now and everything else we're doing with traffic, it would be definitely overwhelming.
But you could form an election board.
Yeah, I guess I could, as the commissioners, I could form a board at that point, so that does help.
The one that interested me, and this has nothing to do with your budget, is who takes over in the event Stacy can.
Coroner.
Who's that? Coroner.
Coroner.
We
Yeah,
don't
he's
think
sure.
whatever. Goodness.
And we've actually had that happen once. Maybe more, but I know once.
I've always been told the coroner was the only person in the county that could arrest the sheriff. I don't know if that's true or not.
And Jerry will be happy to remind you of that too.
I don't know why, I just didn't expect that to go that direction.
God, I hope you don't ever find yourself as sole commissioner, but if you ever do, I'll help you any way I can.
Well, yeah, I hope I don't either. As a matter of fact, I think I responded to David either by that text or email, I can't remember, and maybe even I'm talking on the phone. I said, is there any way you could sign some kind of something that the 3 of them can't be near each other for the rest of the year, just till this gets by, because I don't want there to be any chance that could come into play. But I did find that, I did not know that at all until he said that, and I was like, oh, this is not good. So,
Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack us, but I just thought that was interesting.
I don't have any questions.
I think mine's been answered.
There was one thing that you emailed me about the postage meter.
oh yeah,
On the contract service line, where we now have 5,500, Scott would like to add 5,700 to that for a postage meter for his office. Because as it is, y'all either have to come downstairs and use ours, or go to clerk and use theirs.
and most
And with
recently,
COVID, that's been a little difficult.
most recently, when the meter was out in the mailroom, we were using the clerk's office meter when there was a potential sickness in the clerk's office, and my staff would have been exposed had there been an actual positive in that office. So, and I hadn't even considered this at all until that moment. I thought that may be, I thought that may be a very good reason for actually not speaking for everybody else, but potentially every office having their own meter to keep from all congregating in one room and touching the machine after each other because of COVID. I know that, well, I should say, I hope that COVID is not around from now on, and I hope that we move past this, but the amount of money that I've added to that, simply I had Tracy go do some research, and I think y'all's machine is a Pitney Bowes. And we did some research on that. I don't know that, and I don't know how old our machine is in the mailroom. I don't think that machine in the mailroom is the same one that she looked at, because I don't know that that one still,
We've had that one
yeah, I don't know that you can still get
for a
that one.
while.
But it was basically, you do I guess it's a lease, because we don't buy it. We actually pay them a monthly fee to use that machine. And it would allow us to do our certified mails, which would be our probate stuff, our traffic mails where we set their court days and failure to appear postcards when we send those out. So it would allow us to do everything we need to do in our office without actually leaving our office to use another meter. That was just a after the fact thing I thought of because of what's been going on with our obvious pandemic that we got going on. It will not, it will not derail me. It will not keep me from being able to do my job. I could still use the one in the mailroom, and if it goes down, we could still use the one in the clerk of court's room or office. And worst case scenario, we could bundle everything up and take it to the post office and do it all standing there at the counter. They seem to frown on that a little bit, especially when you, because I just took 58.
Y'all had,
over
I was
there.
about to say, y'all had lunch last.
Yeah, I took
was it last
58 over there this last time at about 4 o'clock and got the evil eye. And I don't blame them. There's a lot goes into that, having to stamp them and peel everything off. But that was just a suggestion. That was an afterthought on that particular line item. If there's another option that y'all might have for that, I'm assuming that everybody in the courthouse uses that meter other than the clerk's office. We talked about maybe the tax
Most-
assessor having one or the tax commissioner, but I don't
Tax
know.
commissioner has her own, tax assessor has their own, clerk of court has their own. The one that's down in our mailroom right now, I think, of course, we use it, y'all,
Magistrate, I assume.
magistrate, planning and zoning. And
I
on a
checked
rare
with
occasion,
Judge, I
fire will
checked with
bring
Judge
something.
Priest, she doesn't use it, she buys stamps, I think, and of course, she maybe don't have to do some of the certified stuff that we do. But, I'm not opposed, because I didn't really have time to do this for this particular meeting. I'm not opposed to checking with, tax commissioner, tax assessor, and clerk of court to see what they currently have, and if we can get what they have, going that route. This was just something real quick. I had Tracy I think she did find out it was Pitney Bowes, and then she got online and started looking at them, talked to somebody at Pitney Bowes, and this is the one that they give us two different options. This one that I've plugged in here actually does a little bit more than the cheaper version, so that's why I picked it. But I'm not opposed to looking into other options if the commissioners would like for me to do that and maybe look at that a little bit more hard than what I did prior to this meeting.
Well, 5,500 comes what?
11,200.
It would be 11,200 if you add 15700.
Of course, I'd have to do some research on mine as far as where we could put that in our office. I don't know, they just have to be plugged up, I'm assuming, or they have to be hooked to it.
You have to have
Internet.
a internet connection. Yeah.
So I would have to look in our office. I do have a few
Because they'll
places
automatically
where
update when the postage rates change or whatever, they'll update.
I've got a place in mind that I could put it, so I don't think it'd be an issue if we had one in our office. I could put it, we've got a place I could put it to the internet.
That's $450 a month.
It would be, actually, it's this one I'm looking at, it's a 51-month contract, and I don't know why it's a weird number like 51. I tried to look to see if they had a 48-month, because, Lord willing, I know that I'll be in office 48 months, because it's a 4-year term, but if I get it now, 51 months, October, November, December, it would be 51, so it's actually 51 months, and it was $110 a month is how the 5,600 came up. Now, the 5,500 that's already budgeted, I think I forget what all is in that contract services.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, now, we're talking about, how much are we talking about per year?
I was gonna look and see,
I thought you just said $100 a month.
57, well,
It's 57 for
It's
the.
50,
For the
yeah,
machine.
51 months.
yeah, it's 51 months for $110 a month would be added to this 5,500 that's already in the budget.
So all we would want to do is be to add 12 times
Exactly.
110, whatever.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
so we wouldn't add the whole 57
That's right.
right off the
Yeah,
bat.
that would be over the length
We would
of
only-
51 months, so you
we
just
only
add the
do
12 months at
12
110. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So what does that do to us, Sandy, on that? I ain't got that in my head.
So if we were 50, it would be what, 66, if we had, how much did you say it was a month?
110 for 12, times 12 is what?
1,200 plus 120.
1320,
1320.
that'll make it 6820.
That's right.
There you go.
Good catch. I was looking way on down the road, too far. I sometimes forget these are 12-month increments.
I'm gonna look to see what's in your other contract service items.
I don't know if that's the water,
Probably,
they, county attorney is not in it's
That's in
professional
professional
services.
it's probably your, do you have any copier leases?
I think I do. I can't think of the company name though, but I do have a copier.
That is Sequoia,
That's the water.
Delage, and Milner's gonna be your copiers.
Okay.
It's really those items are the main thing.
That's really all that I have, unless you have we left just as a side note, if the commission approves the addition for Ms. T, the training that she has to go through as a full-time, you can do a full-time associate judge or a part-time. The full-time associate judge has to have the same amount of training hours the probate judge has. The training and travel and expenses that we have on this budget pretty much, if I remember right, mimic last year's budget because we had budgeted for Ms. T to attend those trainings anyway. So that's why we're not increasing that. So that might have been one of your thoughts. If we do this, would it increase the line item for training and expenses? I don't think that it will, based on what we had planned for this year. However, COVID has messed that up. I'm not sure what our our training schedule looks like for next year. We missed several of our trainings. I have several hours that I've got to make up between now and June 30th. So I don't know exactly how that'll look. I don't think we'll be any different than what we counted on, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I do know that I've got to go to Athens in December to do it, actually teach in a training, which is going to be new for me. But it's I get to help train some of the new judges that will take office in January. So that will count towards some of my training as an instructor.
Ooh. Weird. Moving up in the ranks, huh?
Well, I wouldn't.
Or are they just desperate?
That's it. You got a lot that's retiring, and they need somebody that. I'll say this, and I know this is on the record and being videoed, I guess, for the world, but I was trying to opt out of the training to go teach in December. I told them I didn't know if I was ready for that just yet, and I had a friendly call from a friend of mine that's a probate judge that was our president of our council last year. He called me and he said, "I hear you're wanting to get out of teaching." And I said, "Well, I just don't know that I'm ready for that yet." And he said, "You're ready for it and you need to do it. This helps you grow." And he said, "Plus, if you go to these 40 new probate judges that are taking office in January and they see that you can do it, they'll know they can do it." And I thought that was very nice of him to say.
I thought you were going to say that he was going to say, okay, it's either that or you're the president of our whatever.
No,
Probate Judges Association.
I am, he has appointed me to a lot of different committees, and that may be somewhere down the road. If that's the desire of the council, we'll see how all that works out. But I am involved in executive committee, training committee, and other committees. So I try to help as much as I can, be a part of the council, but we'll see how that, I don't know where it's going to go from here. He tells me quite often that I'm the one that always adds a laugh when they need one, so I think they just want me around for somebody they can make fun of or laugh or cut up with. So we'll see how it all works out. But anyway, I don't have anything. I think everything else was pretty much cut and dried, but those couple of items. And if you got any questions for me, I'll try to answer.
Let me clarify something. I thought you said, I may have misunderstood it. unless there was an increase in salary involved, you could appoint the associate judge without us being involved.
I think that I still have to present y'all.
Yeah, that's what this is
Yes,
saying.
I have to
Okay.
present y'all with the request, but if there's not gonna be any compensation added, I don't know why I would have to have approval to do that, because I can appoint, the law gives me the authority to appoint an associate judge, but I think because of the compensation, I need y'all's permission or approval to move on with that appointment with the compensation that's requested. And I've not read through that whole statute, so there may be some more
That
language.
just indicates, you can appoint one subject to approval of the governing authority. Doesn't mention compensation.
Yeah, I know that, the reason I'm saying that is because in Union County, in Murray County, the probate judge there appointed an associate back in April. And he got sick, and he's the one that ended up, he's my age, and he's the one that ended up really, really bad sick. There for a few weeks, we didn't know what was going to happen. And he actually appointed her without any approval of the county, because he did not compensate her. I think the intention there was just to have an associate. He didn't know that he was going to get sick and she was going to have to be the judge for 3 or 4 months, which she has had to do that. So she may be asking for compensation after what she's been through, I don't know. But I don't know that he did that correctly, and my director of the council told me that I needed to submit this letter to y'all for your approval regardless. So that's what I'm doing here today. I wanted to do that up front, just because I knew you was going to see the difference and wonder what we were doing. So that was it. And on the election thing, I'm going to leave that completely up to y'all. You know, I could throw out a number. Somebody asked me the other day. Actually, I was just talking to a judge in Troup County where they had formed a board and now they're trying to give it back to her, and she don't want it. And so she asked me, she goes, "What would it take for you to want to remain the election superintendent?" I said, there's not an amount I could put on it that would just make me want to keep the election. I love what I do as far as the elections when I can, but when I'm on the ballot and I've got somebody in opposition, I can't be a part of the election period, but yet if something goes wrong, I'm the one that gets called to the state before the elections board because I'm the superintendent. So to me, it's a kind of a conflict, a mess, but it is what it is, and it's one of those duties that we were tagged with in the very, very beginning, and a lot of the counties have moved out of that, some have not. It wouldn't surprise me, and it may be 50 years from now if it's not completely across the state aboard at some point one day, but as of right now, there's still 35 of us or so that have it, so.
Well, in terms of the associate judge, what we'll do is put that on their November agenda,
Okay.
because we'll have to address it in a public meeting,
Do I need to be present for that meeting?
not unless you don't want to.
Okay. If I can, I will be, just in case, but I didn't know if I needed to.
Well, whatever we say ugly about you, you can watch it on.
Well, that's good.
video.
That'd be good.
And then be sure to remember to put that on.
Yeah. But no, you don't have to be present, because I think, unless y'all think y'all might have other questions for me.
I know.
I think we've, sort of hashed it out already.
I'm texting it when I make a note, add that to